We're delighted to have with us this evening Antonin Baudry. Antonin has a rather unusual educational background in that he was trained both as I think I have this right, as a civil engineer and a literary scholar, right? He holds degrees in both areas. Similarly, his career since leaving school about a dozen years ago has been somewhat of a hybrid. He's pursued a path that has tended to blend both diplomacy and culture. He's worked for several parts of the French government, including the ministries of Foreign Affairs and Interior and the Prime Minister's office. And for the past 4 years plus, he's served in New York as France's cultural counselor and permanent representative for the French universities in the United States. In that capacity, his mission has been to enrich cultural and educational ties between France and the United States, with a focus particularly on the development of language programs and university partnerships. It also turns out that Antonin is quite a satirist, and working with the award-winning artist Christophe Blain, he created the entertaining story of a rather bullish French foreign minister who is caught in an international swirl that looks very much like what happened when the Bush administration moved to invade Iraq a little more than a decade ago. Anyone who has ever wondered what really goes on in the upper echelons of government during an international crisis will be both amused and at least somewhat troubled by the scenes of chaos, bureaucratic scheming, political posturing, and blatant self-promotion presented in this very fine book. One of the central characters of the book is a young, earnest, but inexperienced speechwriter to the foreign minister, and in fact, Antonin himself, at the tender age of 26, unexpectedly found himself writing for then French Foreign Minister Dominique de Villepin during the run-up to the Iraq War. Villepin, as you may recall, led European opposition to the Iraq War, so Antonin has a lot of interesting personal experience on which to draw. His novel, which is titled Weapons of Mass Diplomacy, was first published in France several years ago and has since become a prize-winning bestseller in Europe. I think it's sold 500,000 copies or more. It also was made into a popular movie in France called The Minister, which won Antonin, who wrote the screenplay, a nomination for a César, the French Oscar. Now, he wrote the book under a pseudonym, Abel Lanzac, but his anonymity as the author didn't last very long. I think it lasted all of about like a second. He actually really enjoys being in the United States, enjoys Americans. He loves living in New York. He's even been quoted as saying he loves New Yorkers. So let's show him how great Washingtonians can be, and please join me in welcoming Antonin Baudry.
Okay, good evening. Thank you very much, Brad. Actually, I'm very, very proud to be here. This is obviously my favorite bookshop in Washington and really one of my top favorite bookshops in the world. So I'm really, really very happy and proud to be here tonight. So yeah, you said everything. So what could I add?
I didn't have the French accent.
Yeah. You can work on it. I can teach you. It's easy. First, you have to be French, and yeah. No, I tried to get rid of it when I arrived, and then I stopped trying. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's gonna be easy. But yeah, so no, I was really unexperienced, as you say, when I arrived in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because usually I have heard a lot of colleagues here from the embassy who know better than I. So. They will get bored by what I say, but usually when you are when you're a diplomat, you have to go through a certain schools and a certain path and everything. And I was totally out of this track. I mean, I was studying math and literature, as you mentioned, so it was totally a surprise to be hired there. And I hadn't met a politician or a diplomat before in my life when I arrived for the first time. And so I was totally amazed and surprised by everything that was going on around. I really didn't understand anything of the codes and the norms and the way people speak and the way people act and think. And that's what I think that's why this book was done a few years later. And I think that's also why it kind of worked in France, because people identify easily with someone like me who doesn't know anything when it's about and also it was about but how people work. That was fascinating me. When I went and see my publisher, I mean, I say my publisher, it sounds pretentious because I had no publisher, I had no experience either in writing stuff. So when I went and see a publisher, it was Dargaud in France, and I told the guy I'd like to do this. I'd like to show how it works in the cabinet of the Minister of Foreign Affairs in France. And he said, yeah, but I assume people wear suits there. And I said, yes, they wear suits. And I assume they work in offices. And I said, yes, they do work in offices most of the time. And he said, how can you imagine that in a comic book? And how can you imagine that people would kind of enjoy it? They're used to medieval stuff. And I said, yeah, but it's kind of visual though, because the way people express themselves is not only through language, it's really the way they act, they move and everything. So they said, okay, fine, do it. It's weird, but do it and we'll see. And so that's how it started. But the fact I was not experienced, I think really helped. I mean, if I had been a diplomat of Korea, I would not have been able to really translate my emotions and sensations of the guy who just arrives and has, for survival reasons, to crack the codes of many things that are going on in the middle of a diplomatic crisis and this kind of things. Having said that, I really felt a real passion for the people who were around me, and I discovered a heroic way of being a civil servant, which was maybe quite a surprise, because I don't know how it is here, but in France, it's really, I mean, a lot of people always criticize the civil servants, say how little they work, how pretentious they are, and etc., etc. And I arrived, and all the people around were people who really worked like 24/7. They had a kind of madness, that is true, but it was a very devoted one. It was because very often you have, that's what happens in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's the same here at the State Department. You have problems coming up at the middle of the night, obviously, because it's foreign affairs. And usually you have 2 or 3 people in the room at this advanced time in the night. And that's the people who have to decide something and to do something. And most of the time they're tired, as everyone else, at 2 or 3 in the morning. And they never stop. And they do that every day, and they sacrifice their life and their health and everything. And they're the guys who were there were obviously very, very, very smart and talented. So I just love them. And it was like being in a ship, being in a boat. And so then when you're in a boat with the same people day and night during years, you of course you argue and you hate them and you almost, sometimes you, but you love each other really, and the people there were really special. So especially one of them, who's kind of the hero of the graphic novel, and who you might know actually, because he lived here for 4 years actually. He was after being the chief of staff of Dominique de Villepin. In the comic book, his name is Claude Maupas. After being the chief of staff of Dominique de Villepin, he was posted here as an ambassador to the US. And his name is Pierre Vimont, and for me, he was a true hero. He was really, I think he's the real hero of the book, actually. He solves crises. He's always a problem solver. And he's weird. He's smart and weird. You never know what he actually thinks. He knows everybody and everybody knows him. And he's the kind of supernatural presence that everyone kind of fears but also loves and respects. And so that's because of him that I took a pen name, actually, because when he was the ambassador here, I was in Spain. I was posted in Spain when I was doing this graphic novel. And I wanted to come here in his team. And also I wanted to tell him that I was actually doing a book, a satire of him. So that was kind of two contradictory informations that I had to provide. And I thought it would be appropriate to tell him viva voce. So at some point I learned he was in Paris at the same time that I was. So I told him and I asked Pierre, do you think we could meet for 5 minutes in a cafe or whatever? And he was like, yes, of course. And he gave me an appointment in Paris in the 16th district, and he was like, excuse him himself because it was far from what, I don't know. But he was like, I'm sorry, it's so far for you, and it's fine. I mean, it's really fine. And then I arrived a little early at the meeting and was kind of scared because I was like, do I first tell him that I want to be a cultural counselor in his team, or do I first tell him that I'm writing a satire on him? Because if I first tell him the satire thing, the opportunities are reduced. But if I first tell him that I want to be in his team and then he discovers that 5 minutes later, it's going to be a disappointment. So I didn't know. And I was thinking of that. And the owner of the cafe came up and said, who are you waiting for? And I was like, I'm waiting for a friend, actually. I don't know. And he said, yeah, is he tall and kind of British style and with white hair, a little long hair? And I said, yeah. He said, oh, okay, it's the Yugoslavian. I was, no, it's not him. He said, yeah, it's the Yugoslavian. I said, no, it's not him, but he looks like him, probably. And then I was waiting, and Pierre Vimont arrives, and the bartender tells me, yeah, you see, it's the Yugo. I was like, Pierre, how on earth can a French ambassador to the US managed to be told the Yugo by a bartender in Paris? I mean, what have you done exactly before? And he was like, yeah, I don't know why this guy has this false idea that I'm the trainer of the soccer team of Yugoslavia. And I was like, okay, so unfortunately the storyboard of the comic books was finished because this whole meeting with him was like more and more material for it, but it was too late. And so I told him, okay, by the way, because you mentioning the fact that you're weird, I'm doing this. And I showed him the storyboard, and I just looked a few pages and laughed and said, it's great. And he looked at me and said, you should take a pen name. And I said, why? He said, because then you separate things. You know, you do your day job, it's fine. You do your night job, you know, you do whatever you want, it's fine. And nobody will bother you. I said, okay, fine. He's always wise, this guy. Everything he says is wise and smart. So I took a pen name. And then when the book was published, there was some media interest by the book. But the thing that was really interesting them was to know whose pen name it was, because my publisher had a kind of weird impulse. I told them, okay, I'm taking a pen name, so as many other people take a pen name in France, nobody knows it, actually. And I thought everybody would think that this book was written by Abel Lanzac. That's fine, it's me, it's fine. But the publisher sent a communique saying, written by Abel Lanzac, parenthesis, pen name. So of course that doesn't really work. And then so there was this story in the media that there was someone, a mysterious civil servant that was Abel Lanzac, but he was someone else, and maybe he was working in the US, which is weird because it's a comic book also happening partly in the US, and then and maybe he's hiding from his hierarchy, so we have to protect him. And it was like I was I had the feeling I was under protection of someone, and because I was hiding from so I stopped this thing, and I said, no, stop that, and that by the way, my real name is Antonin Baudry, so that's why it didn't last, actually. But it was a nice advice. I mean, I wish it would have worked, because, it would be... But at the same moment, so... And so then there was this thing that Tavernier wanted to... Bertrand Tavernier is a French director, film director, and he wanted to adapt the film, the comic books into a film. And I was not at the beginning. I didn't feel like it was really the idea of, great idea, because for me, but I'm very naive. I have no experience in films and whatever. But actually, I had a small experience, but not enough to judge. And I didn't think it was a great idea because it was already a graphic thing and whatever. I thought it would kill the book somehow. And so I said no. And then he said, okay, wait, I'm flying to New York. I said, okay. And so he gave me we had scheduled a dinner in New York. And I was preparing to go there. And just before going to the dinner, I went to pee as everyone else. And I noticed that I was peeing blood, and I was like, I'm totally hypochondriac, so even when I cough, like 1 minute, I'm almost sure I'm gonna die the following day. So in this case, I was totally sure I was going to die, and I couldn't cancel the appointment because I didn't have his cell phone of the guy, and so I went to the appointment, and then he was speaking to me. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I was like thinking I was going to die, and he wanted me to drink wine, and I didn't want to drink wine because I thought I was already in trouble. I didn't need more trouble. And at the end, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know why I would be the guy who would die and block a project. So I said, yeah, okay, fine. And he said, okay, I have only one condition, is that you write it with me. And I said, it's not, I can sign this because anyway I'm gonna be dead, so it's fine. And so I said, yeah, okay, fine. And then it really started. He really wanted to write it because I thought it was hypothetical and whatever. So we wrote it, and it was actually a great experience. It was really a great experience. It was really fun. It was happy, and it was joyful, and we added a lot of things, a lot of scenes, and we developed some characters and etc. So, but it's all about civil servants and convictions and the complexity of things. Because sometimes, the main character of the book is Taillard de Worms. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. If you read it at the beginning, the first reading, you'll think he's totally insane. He shouldn't be a minister. This guy is insane. But it happens that, for me, he takes only good decisions. And at the same time, there were other guys, like Tony Blair, for example, who were, totally rational. But what I think is that he took bad decisions. So it's all about that, about what is good, what is bad in politics, and I try to do something that's not judgmental. There's not like, when I say it's good decisions, that's what I think, but it's not written in the book at all. And when I think that the guy is insane somehow, it's my vision of it, but it's not. I don't think it's judgmental at all. I don't think that there is a standpoint that judges any of the characters of the book. And honestly, I think that when you look at people, they're always somehow insane. When you really, I include myself, of course. When you really observe them, know them, there's always something that's going on somehow. And sometimes I think that this insanity, this madness, is also something that's necessary. And, well, it's the only... I'm not sure of that, of course. But what I'm sure of is that without this kind of personality in France, we would have participated in the Iraq War, because that was the track. That was the main track. That was the easy decision to make. And so it happened that we had this guy, and that he decided to do something else. But it takes that. I mean, not to do if you take the other way, it means that not doing the easy decision in politics takes an insane guy somehow, and takes some. So we have to respect that too, because, well, I really respect politicians. I think they really sacrifice their life a lot, but I wouldn't deny they're totally insane. So I don't trust them. So the book is about that. Yeah. I don't know if there are questions or.
Hi. I'd like to know if it was your idea that this would be a graphic novel from the very start, and once it became a graphic novel, did that in turn influence how you thought about it and how you wrote it?
Is that in turn influence?
I'm sorry?
What is the second question?
The second question is, once you had decided that it would be a graphic novel, did that influence what you actually wrote, because you knew that there would be a visual element to it?
Yeah. So I decided it would be a graphic novel from the beginning, because first I'm really a fan of graphic novels since I'm young, and actually because the fact I was totally new in this universe made me try to find ways to remember people and to remember how it was working. So I imagined that each person I had in front of me when I was working at the ministry was a superhero. And they all had superpowers, actually. No, but for real. I mean, there was the guy who was able to make everyone laugh at a meeting when it was super tense and we were about to eat each other physically. There was the guy who was able to make a funny, corny joke. That was always the same joke, but that always worked. And there was the guy who was able to see, to foresee, to imagine where we were, what we would do and think the following day. So there were these discussions like about should we do this or should we do that? But this guy was like, you know what? Tomorrow you'll say this, so maybe you should stop talking now and do this. And he was right. And they all had superpowers. So then when I thought of telling this story, I immediately thought that it would be right to do it as a graphic novel. And then, if it influenced me, it more than influenced me, totally, I mean, it totally, I didn't write the story. I never wrote it. I took the artist, Christophe Blain, who's a great artist, by the way, and I took him, I put him in a room, I locked the door for 5 times 1 week. And I dictated him, and I told him, like, you must do that and this, and he says that, and he does that, and I showed him. But I never wrote it. So he was like taking notes and then doing storyboard, and then I was correcting. He was doing a drawing, and I would say, yeah, okay, he says that, but he means the contrary. It's okay, draw you. And he was drawing again, and so yeah, we wrote it this way. I never did the job to write it on a paper and then send it. I'm very lazy, so I wouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Thanks. I wanted to ask you a question about Dominique de Villepin, if you don't mind, because he's a superhero, I guess.
He is.
Yeah. So one of the super heroic things about him is that during this period that you're talking about, he found the time somehow to write like a 600-page book on Napoleon's 100 Days, which is completely unreadable.
Because you have the translation only.
I'm sorry?
No, I was kidding.
And I wondered when I was slogging through this, the degree to which this story of Napoleon and Dominique de Villepin's sense of Napoleon and his the sort of lost cause of the 100 Days influenced him in his in the story that you tell about his opposition to the American policy in Iraq.
Well, regarding the fact that regarding the books, it's a French tradition. All politicians write a zillion books all the time, and you never know how and why, and so they all do that. I'm not sure that this 100 Days Napoleon thing influenced his decision in Iraq. Not sure. I would say that Napoleon is a romantic figure in France, and for him especially. But I think that in this case it was really not a romantic posture. It was quite a rational one. Like you said, there's an emergency. There's an urgency to fight in Iraq because there's a immediate threat. So maybe we should just first check that there is this threat, and then take a decision. So that was not a Napoleon-like thing. On the contrary, I think that the Napoleon attitude would be to go and fight immediately. Yeah. Did I answer the question?
Sure. It's what was interesting about that about Villepin's stance, though, was that he never made an effort to stop the war. He just opposed it, and of course the war happened anyway, and that was the sort of the heroic element of it, was that he and the sort of 100 Days element of it, to me at least, was that it never seemed, and I would welcome a contradiction, it never seemed as if he was actually intent on stopping this war. He was just intent on making a stand.
I mean, what could he have done to stop the war? Imagine you're a French diplomat. I mean, you're not going to take a Kalashnikov and fire the I mean, no, he really tried to stop the war, actually. I think he couldn't, there was nothing more he could do. I mean, the only way to stop a war is the diplomatical way, by definition. And that's what he tried to do. That didn't work. It didn't work. But that was, at least, I mean, what he was trying to do was to delay the war and to give time to the inspections for them to reveal whether there was a threat or not. But that didn't work because there were other agendas. But honestly, imagine yourself as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of any country in the world, and you have the US saying, we're going to do that war. What can you do, exactly? I mean...
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Oops. It's very refreshing to hear in this town, particularly somebody talk about bureaucrats being heroes. So you're an honorary member of the fraternity, I guess. But anyway, you're saying that you're a little bit of a hypochondriac, and I think that probably fits in with also being a bureaucrat, because it's the other side of the face of paranoia, I would think. I don't know if they fit in there. But anyway, getting serious, you talked about the hero and you talk about insanity, and you seem to link it to leadership. And I can think of certain people, I mean, like MacArthur, who wanted to drop nuclear bombs on North Korea or China, as a great leader who was perhaps a little insane. But then you have people on the other side who were perfectly rational and great leaders. So I wonder if you could elucidate a little better what you mean by some great leaders being insane. I'm not sure I followed your definition.
Okay, I don't say that it's great
Or
that leaders are
Okay.
insane.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a fact and it's a result of the process of selection of our leaders. And I think that if you're not super hero-driven, it will be difficult for you to resist the process of a political campaign, for example. And so I think that all the people who emerge from this process are somehow not like, I wouldn't say you and me because I don't know you, but like me for sure. And so yeah. So I don't say that everyone who's not like me is insane. That's not what I'm saying either.
Yeah.
But I would say that especially our leaders are really super trained to being resistant to many kind of pressure, and that makes them develop a kind of insanity. I think. I don't think it's good, but I don't think it's the kind of insanity that you're talking about the nuclear bomb. I don't think that means they're not reasonable. I don't think they're kind of people who would be excited and press the bomb or whatever. I think they're responsible for that stage. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I have the feeling that everybody who's been acquainted with political leaders has noticed that there's something special about the way they conceive life and friendship, and it's really sacrificial somehow. It's really different from many other jobs, I think.
Yeah, I'd
I
have
think
to
so.
agree with you there. Probably more childhood psychology would be a better instrument to try to figure out why they got to be there. But anyway, I'll let that go. Thank you. That was very good.
Thanks.
MacArthur's infamous I shall return, but he basically was saying, you stay and die in the Philippines, and I'll go away, but I'll come back eventually. So in one sense, that created lots of problems militarily. But France had its own reign of terror historically, and ISIS now is the reign of terror in the Middle East. The huge problem is the Muslim society in France, so it's too easy to have people blow things up in France and create havoc. Without speculating that much, or you have to have an opinion, what should France now do to bring order out of disorder?
Well, I wouldn't answer that because it's really a political question, and I have personally no opinion on that. I mean, I have a personal opinion, but it's not the better one than you.
Officially, you can use an anonymous quote.
It's not the point of the discussion. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you for your talk. I was curious as to what motivated you to apply for the job in the ministry, and how did you get the job in the ministry when you didn't go to the right schools, quote unquote, and didn't know the right people, quote unquote? How did that process work to get you to that job that you described?
Well, it was a different process because I was a speechwriter. And I know Brad knows someone who has such an experience too. When you're a speechwriter, you're hired directly by the person you have to write for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was from another background totally.
I see.
Yeah.
So you were not working with people that you were working directly for the person that you were writing the speeches for.
Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the way it happens in France. I think here too, but yeah.
Interesting. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hi. Bonsoir.
Oh, hi.
I was just wondering if you're planning to write The New Yorker or an American version of this book.
No. But I'm planning to write other things later. Because here I really don't have the time to. But later, yeah. I love writing. So
Yeah, hello. I'm part of the, so-called French Caribbean, right? And I was wondering, is there a great deal of diversity within the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs? So what I'm saying specifically, is it only a certain group of people in the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or are there a lot of people from the colonies, the former colonies? Are there a lot of people, for example, of Islamic background, Muslim background in the foreign ministry? Because I think that could be help us to maybe come to some better understanding how the decision was made by Dominique Villepin. I do not know if you want to speculate or say anything about some of the discussions at that point in time. Maybe you can't say anything about it. But obviously you have in France a very strong, Muslim minority, also a very strong African minority, Caribbean minority. I was wondering when this decision was being made, and there was clearly very strong disagreement about what the United States was up to at that point in time, especially across the black and the brown third world, developing world. I was wondering, did any of these two things play out in the decision-making processes, or was it simply a process that there were general disagreement within the ministry across all type of different groups, men, women, minorities, etc., in the ministry? And I don't know if you can say anything about that. Thank you.
Well, I don't think that the division. There were a lot of discussions inside the ministry, and there were a lot of people in favor of the war and a lot of people against the war. I think the majority of the ministry was in favor of the war. That's something that my colleagues don't say anymore now, but at this time, the vast majority of the ministry was in favor of the war, I think. But it was not about minorities. It was not about, not a lot. We have this French system, or maybe illusion, that minorities as such would not play a role in what you do. And I think it's a terrific idea. When you say something, you don't represent your minority. Having said that, there's a lot of problem also, because for the system to be really good, it would require all the minorities to be perfectly integrated and equally represented in every center of decision, which is not the case. So, but minorities don't play an official role in decisions in public policies in France. They cannot play an official role. Doesn't mean that they never play a role, but not an official one. Nobody would say, I think that because I'm a Muslim, or because I'm a Jew, or because I'm a Catholic. Nobody would say that. Maybe people could think that, but not say it. So I think it's really different from here. For the better or for the worse, I don't know. I don't judge, but it's different. Yeah.
Does Monsieur de Villepin like the way he was presented in your book? Did you give him an autographed copy of it?
He was the first one to read it.
One more question.
Yeah.
To what extent did it affect his reputation in France?
He was the first one to read it, and he was my first fan, actually. He did a lot of interviews to support the book and to it was really interesting and fun the way he reacted. What I had planned, because I worked with this guy for 5 years, so obviously I would not do it without him knowing it, but I would not either accept to correct things or to change what I wanted to say. That would be, I didn't want that. So what I did and what I planned and what I did was that I would show him the storyboard before it was published. I would tell him that I was going to publish it, and if he tells me that it's a problem for him, I would wait. I could wait 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. I've got a job. I'm not in a hurry for anything, so I can wait 10 years. I'll publish it someday, and this way, I will not correct anything. But it happened that he loved it. He has a huge sense of humor, so that he loved it. and except for certain pages. So I was kind of taking notes because I had only one storyboard. It was the original one. So I couldn't follow because he was reading in front of me. So he was laughing and laughing, and then there was a page. He was like, and I was okay, page 17. So I was writing 17 on my, and then there was like 7 or 8 pages like that. And then I went to a coffee shop after that just to check. I was impatient to understand what were the pages. I was like, I'm sure he's gonna, I don't know. It's about and actually I didn't understand. Page 17. What's the problem exactly? Page 27. I didn't understand. And then I got it. The pages he didn't like were all the pages he was not in. So that's true. He could testify.
My question's pretty similar to that, but outside of Dominique de Villepin, were you concerned about how some of your other colleagues might react to the way they were depicted? And do you think that influenced you as you were doing the storyboards with your artist as far as, your relationship with them when you were working and how they might react to it once the novel was published?
No, because I was starting from the idea that I would be fired anyway. So it didn't influence me. But it happened that the reaction of my colleagues was totally unexpected, because they really laughed a lot. I received only happy, nice, beautiful messages. I was surprised, because people never love it when you talk about them, but they loved it. And the ones who were some of them called me and say, "Don't think I'm mad if I sign books, but it's because I love it and people ask me to do so. So if you see books signed by me, it's not that I pretend I wrote it, but..." So yeah, no, I mean, I had only good vibes from it was fun, yeah.
Hello. I found the film a total success because the humor, for once, was not based on sex, especially for French movies. I found the humor...
Can I hear a critic of French films? Yeah.
I found the humor very fresh, very original. However, I did not understand why you added the character of this woman played by Julie Gaillet.
I didn't add it. It's in the book. It's totally in the book. Maybe I developed it a little. Because I mean, actually, all the characters in the book are synthesis. Not all of them, but the majority of them are synthesis of people I knew or whatever. They're not pure copies of any living person, but they're synthesis. And in the book, this woman kind of encapsulates all, say, the petty parts of human nature. She's very mean, and and I thought it's not fair, because even mean people are great somehow if you can understand them. So in the film, I wanted to give her something more. So that's why she's more developed. She's more complex. She's more... one can more understand her standpoint, I think. But I didn't add her. She was... No, she's important. She's very important. I love her, actually. I mean, yeah.
So she is realistic.
She's a mix of many people, of many men and women, and she's a mix of all of us, I think. Yeah.
So you told me before that you've got this is your last year in the States. They're bringing you back home, but part of your legacy is this interesting bookstore that you're establishing in New York, French bookstore, and I wondered if you could tell everybody a little bit about that.
Oh, right. Yeah, I believe in books. I think that in physical books, I mean, and I think that the more people read books, the better the world will be somehow. I really believe in this. And so I love bookshops. I spend all my time in bookshops. When I go in a city, the first thing I do is to check where are the good bookshops. And that's why I arrived here, I think the first night I was in Washington, actually, 4 years ago. And then I saw in New York there's no more French bookshops. There was one until 2009, but that was closed. And there's really a limited access to French books. And when I say French books, I mean even in translation, not only in French, of course. And even the books that are reviewed in a New York Review of Books or the New Yorker with the very fancy magazines, you really have to kind of work hard to find them in New York. And not only because some of the bookshops close, but also because it's not easy to find them. So I thought there should be a bookshop in New York. But then in New York you have something that you don't have it here at the same extent, which is the rent problems, which makes that it's not bookshops, all small businesses close. They really close. They cannot afford, like when when the lease is ended and the people want to multiply the rent by 6. Nobody can afford that when you're a small business. So we have a lot of Duane Reads, and I think we have enough of Chase and all of that. But the small business, they all vanish. And by the way, it's weird that nobody answered in that. Because the story is coming up in the New York Times and in many newspapers that small businesses are not, they're going to disappear from New York. But nobody does something for the moment. Well, I guess it will happen somehow. And so my first move was to try to help someone build a French bookstore somewhere in the city, but it happened that it would not be possible because it would not work. And then I saw that at the cultural services of the French embassy, we had space, actually. So it would solve the problem of the rent thing. So that's when we took the decision with my ministry to create a French bookshop there. And so we raised a lot of money because it's private money, because we couldn't afford to do all the construction work and in order to meet the norms, to welcome people and all of that. And it's done and it's opening now. It's going to be a great bookshop, I hope. It's 15,000 books. It's going to be 2 floors on 5th Avenue, almost in front of the Metropolitan Museums. And the design is made by Jacques Garcia, who is a great French architect. And the design is the design of a classical library, classical French library. It doesn't look like a retail space. Because it's a non-for-profit thing, so we don't want to make profits. Every profit would be reinjected in invitation of authors and events and books, and so yeah, you can go there and read books and just read books, but you can also buy books, but you don't have to. So it's designed as a library, and there's going to be a lot of events, and it's going to be cool. And I hope I will see you there. Yeah.